I believe that if a business doesn't have be relevant as one of the core values or behaviors of the business, I believe that irrelevance is coming. And I think that we need to start getting relevance into our psyche, into the ideas, is the problem that we're solving still the problem that needs to be solved? Or if it is the way we solve it still the best way? And that mindset that is required to be in constant, without zigzagging and trend hopping, that mindset is very, very important to keep your business so that you're on track and moving in the right direction.
Welcome to the EO Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti, bringing you the raw and real stories behind the entrepreneurs shaping our world. Today's guest isn't here to play it safe. He's here to flip the script on how we think, lead, and communicate. Meet Rich Mulholland, former rock and roll roadie turned rockstar entrepreneur. He is the founder of Missing Link, South Africa's leading presentation firm, and co-founder of Too Many Robots, a creative content agency helping brands show up in bold, unforgettable ways. Rich has spoken in over 30 countries, delivered multiple TEDx talks, and authored powerful books that challenge the status quo. He's an EO South Africa legend famous for slaying comfort zones, fighting mediocrity, and showing leaders how to stand up, speak out, and stay relentlessly relevant. In this episode, Rich shares bold truths on leadership, storytelling, and why relevance is your responsibility. If you're ready to level up your thinking and ignite your leadership, this one's for you. Let's dive right in.
This episode is sponsored by Outsourcing Angel, your partner for skilled offshore staff in LinkedIn marketing, lead generation, customer support, and more. As a social enterprise, we donate 10% of profits to charity and provide heart-centered VAs who go the extra mile for your success. Visit outsourcingangel.com.
Hi, welcome to the show, Rich. So great to have you here.
Thank you. It's amazing. I've been watching and following, and so very, very excited to be on the show.
Great. Now, before we get started in your business journey, I'm just curious about your rock and roll experience. Like, how did you get started with that before you led you into your business journey?
It was very random. I had heard that the band Depeche Mode was coming to South Africa, where I was living at the time. And my dad had been involved in the sound industry. And I said to him, Dad, I'll do anything. I'll lick the stage clean for free if you can get me work as a stagehand. And he did. So I worked on that concert in the lowest of the low positions. And then the next week it was Aha, and the next week it was Bryan Adams. And it just kind of grew from there. I got offered a job as full crew. And then I ended up being touring crew for 2 years. It was really great.
Okay. All right. So tell me a little bit about your current business now. Is it still in the presentation business that many years that you've, started now? Or what are you up to these days? Because I see that you're entrepreneur, you're speaker, author, and many things.
Yeah, so I think a lot of entrepreneurs are speakers and authors. And to me, that's virtue of the fact of stage marketing, right? If you want to show up in the world as an expert in some way, and you want to show that your business thinks about the world in a different way, speaking and writing is a really, really good way to position that alternate point of view. So yeah, Missing Link is still going. I've had that 28 years. I started when I was 22, and it's really great. We're a persuasive communication firm. We work with executives and professional speakers, trying to help them carve out the story that they want to share with the world and to do it in a way that the world wants to hear. And then I have Too Many Robots, which is a fractional AI agency that we started last year. It's been a lot of fun to run. And we kind of started it to be a threat to the old company. I felt the Missing Link was a bit long in the tooth in the way that it was trying to embrace this new technology. I got frustrated that I felt that we weren't moving fast enough. So I created an arm to act as a threat. And then that threat grew into its own business.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to deep dive into that. The way you pivoted, it sounds amazing. Let's go back to kind of the journey or the gap between when you were on those stages, and then how did you come up with the idea to start a business in presentation?
Yeah, so I guess I had the idea to start a business. I knew I wanted to start a company my whole life, but the frustration for me was that in South Africa in winter, you don't have any work in rock and roll. People don't want to go to concerts when it's cold. And I live in the Isle of Man. If there was, people didn't leave the house when it was cold. You'd never leave the house. But the key thing is I started seeing that there was corporate work that happened all year round. So I went to my boss and I started a small little corporate division called PSL Conference Services. And I would go and pitch these CEOs and things and say, hey, listen, I can turn you into a rock star. And they were all like, yeah, you can. And but what happened is it didn't make a difference. We'd do all these big lighting and sound, and these people would walk onto the stage like the best thing was happening, and then they'd get onto the stage and then they'd bore people to death for like the next hour. And I thought, shit, there's got to be a better way than this. So at the time, I was also the marketing manager of Gearhouse, the firm I worked for. I kind of just took on, we'd just been acquired, so I took on any job I could. And I'd met this designer. His name was Tim Busey. And I said, Tim, listen, why don't we start a little side hustle and we can help these guys. These got corporate guys. They can't be any worse. Let's make some slides for them. And within 6 months, we had 4 employees. And I realized, hey, there's a business here. I went to my boss at the time. He bid me, good luck. Away I went. And here I am today.
Yeah. Okay. And so you were making slides as well as teaching people how to be a better storyteller. Can you go deep dive a little bit more about the service you were offering, at the beginning and towards even, in recent times?
Of course. At the beginning, it was 2 things. So bear into mind that I didn't have any real understanding of what worked. I kind of had a view. You know how sometimes I think entrepreneurs are driven by hate. We don't look at things that work and think, oh, I want to do that. That's kind of cutesy, but there's no gap. You look at things that really frustrate you and you want to fix them. So all I had when I started was, I know what doesn't seem to work. And I knew that those big slides with like 100 bullet points and things like that did not work. I know a person standing on stage speaking for hours without a break didn't work. And so the kind of 2 original points were, can we make prettier, better slides? I now realize that pretty is not enough, but at the time, 22 years old, what can you do? So that's one thing. And then the second thing was, can we interrupt an audience's attention? And I recognized that video was a thing that we could use. And kind of the Mac computers had just come out and you were able to download video editing tools. And we were able, for the first time in history, video editing was relatively cheap. And we were able to disrupt the markets. So we started really, really going to companies and saying, hey, we can make almost disposable video. I remember the CEO of a company that years later tried to buy us actually called me and said, you're killing the industry. You're charging far too cheap. You can't be making money and you're just destroying the industry. And I said, we are making money. And the difference is you'd spent $100,000 on an edit suite. We just had a laptop. And so I didn't have to sweat the same assets that he did. Anyway, ironically, of course, the same has happened again. And we're now the incumbent company that's losing headroom in video editing to AI tools.
Okay.
So that's where that got to. Within a few years, we started understanding that even the video and the slides, that's like the garnish. That's like the garnish on the plate. And if you get a bad steak, you can't fix it with the garnish. And I recognize that we actually had to start fixing the steak, the real part of the problem. I knew that blaming PowerPoint for a bad presentation was like blaming a pan for a bad meal. And so we started really focusing on what are the narrative structures that work? What are the stories? And all of this was just intuitively realizing that person was really good. What did they do? And that person wasn't. What did they do wrong? And sometimes the first big assertion that came to play was there were some speakers that were absolutely brilliant. Everyone loved them. They were hilarious, but ineffective. They didn't get the job done. And then there were other speakers that the audience had to lean into and really like think and maybe do more heavy lifting. But at the end of the presentation, change happened. And that's when I started realizing that narrative structures were everything. And we really, really focused on that. We got into the training side, the speech writing, and then creating the programs for professional speakers.
So just curious, how long would it take for someone who's kind of amateur in presenting to be able to kind of transform? I know it probably depends on people, but just a range of time if someone's listening going, you know what, I really want to ace the stage, or actually I'm talking about myself. Even though I sound like I'm confident, I'm actually super nervous about being on stage. But how quickly do you think someone can really understand the narrative or the structure and be able to deliver better?
No, I believe that people can learn to deliver better instantly. Like we will run level up training sessions with human beings. We'll try to change their mindset about 1 or 2 things, on a presentation they're about to do. And smallest little changes, things like understanding your segues. The number one way that you can look like a professional speaker is getting your links between slides better. If you can stop turning around, finishing a concept, and then hitting click, looking to see what's next, and then carry on going. If you can stop that staccato form and actually just let your content blend into each other, you immediately sound better. If you can just restructure your pace, pitch, pause, and pose, you immediately sound better. And of course, if your narrative follows a paint by numbers, easy to follow narrative structure that an audience can just listen to and engage with in an easy way, you're immediately better. So the biggest problem for me is a good speaker will find it'll take a lot longer to become a great speaker because they're unwilling to let go of what makes them naturally good. They're seduced by their own skill and eloquence. Whereas a nervous person who recognizes that there's work to be done can learn it very, very quickly.
Wow, that is really
the only
interesting
thing that gets in
insight.
the way.
That's really interesting. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the challenge you faced or felt that, you had to pivot, and that is why you got into the AI business. What was the trigger there?
So I would like to caveat that by saying that it's not necessarily a pivot. What it was a branch. So,
Okay.
and entrepreneur, I've created a number of businesses throughout the years. The realization was, and I kind of talk about this in Relentless Relevance, I don't think you're going to be put out of business by a better business. I think you're going to be put out of business by a better business model. People who figured out newer, better ways to do the work that you do in a more effective and market-friendly way. And Missing Link had been built on the back of years and years of structures and processes, and the work that we'd done made a lot of sense then, but wasn't making much sense now, especially our pricing model and things like that. And I found that we were charging, when I was looking at some of the proposals of going out to clients for some work, I thought, but this is crazy. And then I would interrogate it, and I would realize that, but we're still charging the old school way. And I was convinced that AI could do a lot of what we were doing better while still keeping a human in the loop. So I knew I wanted to be in the space somewhat. I just didn't know what it looked like. So it started off as a bit of a project, and we started with an internal AI team trying to actually create disruptive things and to disrupt our whole business model. And actually, I remember once Ruben, he'd started an intern at Missing Link, and then after a year moved across to Too Many Robots. And we were trying to create an explainer video. Now, Missing Link used to make those all the time. This was the big aha moment for me. And so I'd said to Ruben, go to Missing Link. Now, bear in mind, I own 100% of both companies. So I said, go to the team at Missing Link and ask them for a quote and make an explainer video. So they came back and they said, okay, cool. Obviously, it's rich. We'll do it for cost price. And this is how much it's going to cost you. And let's say, I can't remember the exact currency conversion, but let's say it was $10,000 and it would take about a month. And this was very market appropriate. But we were a brand new startup, and we certainly didn't have $10,000 to spend on that. So I said to Rubes, listen, dude, here's the brief. I know it's like Futurama meets the suffragette movement meets, this is the vision we wanted to have for how we presented the business. This is the narrative we want to do. Please go away and see what you can come up with. Anyway, I was back in South Africa the next week. On the Tuesday, we had a team lunch, and he said, hey, can I see you tomorrow? I want to take you through the video. And I thought what he meant was, I want to take you through the show reel of the video. And the next day, he showed me, it's actually the video that's at toomanyrobots.wtf now, and you can have a look at it. It's basically a short little explainer video that is very good. It's not perfect, but it did the job really, really well. And a guy with no video editing experience whatsoever, created this video absolutely fully from nothing in 3 days for $10 in Shutterstock credit. And so my one company said that they would take a month to do something at cost price for $10,000, and the other business was doing something at $10. And this seemed ridiculous to me. So I wrote a LinkedIn post and said that my one company is going to war. It was called Why We're Going to War with Our Own Business and Why You Should Too. And I sent everybody in Missing Link that message and said, Too Many Robots is coming for you. If you are not aggressively trying to find better, newer ways to solve our clients, Too Many Robots is going to be the threat to the threat.
Wow. That is so interesting. I've never heard that before. I've never heard of someone kind of building out a branch, another business, and in a way challenging the old business and still holding on to that business. I guess, what do you see in the future? Do you see that, because you're still in the same industry or same type of product service, it would sound like it's a natural way to just move towards that. What, do you think that this is the path you're going to go to, or you really want to challenge the two side by side to figure out, two different things?
Yeah. So too many robots. It's a threat to missing link, but it's certainly not trying to stay in the presentation space at all. That's just one thing that it can do. It is trying to solve new and interesting problems with AI. And to be honest, in an EO setting, our job at the beginning is to solve lots of problems while we try and figure out what we're really good at and what the space will be. So right now, and we work with lots of EO businesses, and we're trying to solve these broad problems all over using AI to look at interesting ways we can do that. The hope is, that book, Anyone, Not Everyone. The hope is eventually we find the focus area for the focus market. Missing link has already discovered what that is. However, I cannot, in my head, see another 28 years for a presentation business. I cannot see that we have the ability to continue doing what we are doing. But I do. That business is going to have to pivot. That business is going to have to change. And we're busy creating what we refer to as a relevance academy, a tool for human beings. I do believe wholeheartedly that public and professional speaking is the skill for the future. Any group of human beings, if you have like 5 coders and 1 coder can present well in meetings and can show up for your clients, and you're cutting 3 of the jobs, it will not be the coder that can communicate. In any field, the person who can communicate will have an unfair advantage over the one that cannot. And so I know that that's part of the focus of future relevancy. There are other areas as well that we're looking at, but it's not fully formed yet. But there is no doubt to me that my business is under threat.
Okay. So I guess you still, the business of public speaking still exists, training still exists. It's just that you're going to build out maybe a training academy versus the original model of, I guess, doing the presentation for people. And then were you hands-on training people? It sounded a lot more intensive before. And then you're suggesting that there'll be like, I guess, more like courses that people can do moving forward?
Yeah, so already now we have, for example, our in-person training that we do for lots of corporates. And then we have our Story to Stage speaking program that we do to train professional speakers. There's tons of EOs have been on that. And so that does have that. I don't know if you're familiar with the DIY, DFY.
Do it yourself type thing. Do it with
for
you.
or done with you.
Yeah.
And so Story to Stage works with that done with you thinking. So they're going through a program and once a week we're on calls to help them. I do believe that that's a very good use of time for the future. And I think the Relevance Academy work we do will certainly follow that model. Our academy has been running since 2017 now, and is the most profitable and biggest part of our business. So that's certainly still working that way. We have found, though, that the slides are a lost leader. So people come to us for the slides, but they leave with the academy. And so we just got to figure out that maybe we find a better way to do that. So they're still coming for that hook, but then getting involved there. However, I don't believe that just being a better presenter is enough. I think that if you want to be relevant in the future, if you want to be harder to fire, there are certain skills that we have to have. Communication, negotiation, decision-making are 3 of the biggest skills. I think the people that have these things are going to be well-placed. And these are the foundational just-in-case skills we have. And the opposite side, we need just-in-time skills. We need skills that are relevant for the world that we're in right now. And most people have this view that I think that people aren't curious enough. And we want to try and ignite that curiosity for people. So I think the business will move into the space in which professional communication and speaking is a core part of what we want people to be better at. But that is not the end game. The end game is, how do I make human beings more relevant so that is more appropriate to the matter at hand and harder to get rid of?
That's why you coined it relentless relevance.
Yeah, because relevance used to be a marker. You used to check how relevant you were every few years, like you make a statement to the world. This is what we do. This is the focus of the business at the moment. And then every few years, you just check, like, is this still matter? But relevance, the term is the state of being appropriate to the matter at hand. And the matter at hand is changing very, very quickly. I believe that if a business doesn't have be relevant as one of the core values or behaviors of the business, I believe that irrelevance is coming. And I think that we need to start getting relevance into our psyche, into the ideas, is the problem that we're solving still the problem that needs to be solved? Or if it is the way we solve it still the best way? And that mindset that is required to be in constant, without zigzagging and trend hopping, that mindset is very, very important to keep your business so that you're on track and moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Oh, I love those two questions. They're powerful. I'm going to rewind back and note it down. Let's talk a little bit about your growing up. I mean, were you always this curious person? Did you know were you nurtured in your household as an entrepreneur? Like, it just feels like very special. You're always thinking. I was definitely not like that when I was growing up.
Yes, I think I was. I mean, maybe not when I was very young, but first job was packing grocery bags at the Spar when I was 13. I then started a little perfume. Well, in fact, before that, I sold business cards door to door. I sent away to a thing called the National Sales Association, and we allowed us to make custom stationery with your name and address on it. And so I sold those door to door, and then had a little perfume business where I sold fake perfume to teachers. It was horrific, and the scent lasted for like 5 minutes. It was another one of those things you send away for. Back in the day, you send a stamp with an envelope with a check or something you got from your parents away, and then this kit arrives, and a little order book. But I knew I wanted to start a business. I remember sitting in my business economics class in high school, and it would have been 3 years before I finished, whatever, grade 10 in South Africa. But I remember I'd come up with this business model for a business called Club Exec, which was a discount association for lots of companies. And I was working on it in my business economics class. My business economics teacher came, looked at it, and I've been drawing the logo. And he looked at us and he said, "This is not the assignment I told you to do." And he tore it up. And I remember thinking, bro, no, you don't get it. But already then I knew that starting a business was a big deal. My hero at the time was Richard Branson. I remember I've owned the only book I've ever stood out of a bookshop ever and queued for was his book, Losing My Virginity, the original one when it came out. I was standing outside Exclusive Books in Cresta like an idiot, waiting for the shop to open, went in and got my copy. And then that was my next 2 days, just going through that and obsessing. And then my other hero was a guy by the name of Simon Woodruff, a British entrepreneur. And I'd really like, he was also an ex-roadie. So I wanted to follow him. He's the founder of Yo Sushi. I don't know if you know it.
No, I don't know it. I only know Richard Branson. Yeah. So just curious, as young as you were, what motivated you into business? Was it just feeling like you needed to do things your way, or was it really the financial success that you were hoping for? And has that changed now that you've been in business for so long?
Yeah, I think there were stages. So I'm not sure there was a motive. The motive was I want to start a company. I don't think there was. I don't think I thought through what it was. When I started my company, when I was 22 years old, then I wanted to be ridiculously rich, and everything was about wealth and power and things like this. Now, I guess it's definitely changed because reality has caught up with me, and it turns out I'm not as good at business as I thought I was. I'm not super powerful and wealthy beyond belief, and that's quite a tough thing to do. I think it's part of the reason why I have less confidence now as a 50-year-old than I did as a 22-year-old. It's quite a weird thing. I found that I've aged out of confidence instead of aging into confidence when I thought the opposite should happen. And it's not to say that my life hasn't, on other people's measurement, been deemed, somewhat successful. It's that when measured against the expectations of my 23, 4, 5-year-old self, I'm a complete failure that's achieved nothing. And so I've had to recalibrate and realize, just how much value, why am I living my life according to the expectations of a child? And I can let go of that, although it's very difficult. And the truth is that my priorities have fundamentally changed. And I recognize if I stayed at work a little bit longer, if I sent more mails, if I was more aggressive in how we charge people and things like that, we would make more money. But my give a shit for that is lower. And I want to be home with my wife and my kids, and I want to have a good time. And I do prioritize life over work. And I also realize that I do not want the definition of my life to be business. I want it to be something different. And therefore, it's no longer the core focus.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think I've also came to that realization. And yeah, because you just feel like this hustle, this rat race, even though you escape from one in the corporate world, when you go into business, you kind of get caught in this never ending cycle of more as well. So thank you for sharing that. Knowing that you've been in EO for 14 years, I believe. I think
Yeah, 15 now.
yeah. Tell me a little bit about your journey in EO. How did you find it? And how has it changed your life?
I mean, dramatically in every way. It is completely nuts. I think I'm a better human being, without a doubt. There is no doubt. It's something after 15 years why I'm still such a evangelist. I'm a membership chair again of my chapter. It's funny though, because I originally said no. So I was invited to be a founder member of YEO Johannesburg when it started. And two of the entrepreneurs invited me over on a Saturday morning to come and hear the pitch. And I remember they said that you had to have this, at the time it was a 7 million Rand, $1 million turnover. And I was like, well, I have that. But then I thought, what a douchebaggy criteria. And you got to have a certain amount of employees. And I thought, all you care about is turnover and employees. What about small companies that have, 5 people and their turnover is 900,000, but their profit is, 800,000. And anyway, at the time, I just thought it was all ego. I was completely wrong. I said no. And it was years later, I was asked to speak at the EO University in Cape Town. A guy had come to watch me speak at another event. And then he came up to me and he said to me, I just watched you speak. I'd love you to come and to speak at this EO event. We'll pay for you. And I flew down and I did the gig. And when I left, I thought there's so many entrepreneurs that I respect so much in this room that I knew from all around South Africa. And then everybody I met was amazing. And I thought, I have to join this. So, and they'd been asking me to join quite a bit. And I went to the membership chair at the time and I said, okay, that's it. You've won. I'm in. And he was like, not so fast. Apply. And then I shat myself while trying to go through the application process. I was so nervous and I realized I really wanted this. So I got involved. I got accepted, luckily. I was in for a few years. The kind of luster started wearing off and I was quitting. I went to the incoming president. I said, dude, this isn't for me. I think I'm going to leave. And he said, will you just do me one favor before you go? I said, sure, no problem. What's that? And he said, join my board for a year. So I was like, that's anyway. So I was like, okay. So I joined his board as the membership chair. I did that a second year. The third year I was the president. Then I did 3 years in the global communications committee. Then a couple of years out of leadership. I became maybe a bit cynical about some of the politics. And then last year I got back and I moved chapters to US East Bridge. I got involved as co-membership chair and this year membership chair again.
Wow. So your plan to leave never happened and you're still here.
I know. The path of leadership was the most important change for me. In fact, as much value I get from my forum today, and I have a second forum called 864 that only focuses on, instead of business, personal, family, community, 864 focuses on physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And in spite of all the value I get from that, being part of EO's global leadership and internationalizing my viewpoint of the world and has been the biggest game changer for me.
So tell me a little bit about, I guess, yourself. How do you feel like you were 15 years ago as a leader? Describe yourself. And what do you think of yourself now if you were to describe your leadership style?
Well, I was an asshole. I was full of shit. I was full of myself. I thought I was, so I had delusional self-belief. I actually let myself off the hook a little bit. And in fact, when I see people in their 20s and early 30s being a little bit assholey, I no longer judge them the same way. And I don't believe you can't change your stripes. I actually think that it's an important phase to go through. While you have that delusional self-belief, I don't think I understood how to direct it. So I was just fiery, like there was a job to be done and a mission and this must happen. And I pushed myself and I pushed my staff. And it's, I guess, testament to those asshole years that I'm still friends with so many of my staff and so many of them run their own businesses now. Missing Link has 26 ex-staff members who run their own companies, which for a small business, I'm really proud of. And the difference is at some point, I think EO generally, and the Global Leadership Academy specifically, was the biggest pivot point for me. It kind of made me reassess my values. It made me reassess what was important, and it calmed me down. Of course, the cliche of having children calmed me down. I would say that. But actually, the other thing was I worked my way through my first marriage. I was a terrible husband. That was part of the asshole thing. She definitely deserved better. I thought I would never get married again. It was my forum when I met my wife now that talked me into it, said that, you know what, why are you allowing yourself to think that you'd have to be a failure at this? My wife is crazy. She's an absolute firecracker, all these ideas. She's an artist. And there was nothing like being with somebody who is larger than life and creative to realize that you can't have two people of that energy in the same house. And I was older and I'd already been through that. And I realized that I had to calm down and I had to be the other force. And so at home, I'm the calm one. And I prefer this version.
That's really interesting. Well, are you able to just share a little bit of wisdom from your experience with your first marriage? I guess, what are some of the lessons that you were able to take onto your next marriage? I mean, I'm still happily married in 14 years, but I always think that anything you want to succeed in, you got to put effort in it and always optimizing and nurturing that. So any tips around marriage?
Yeah, well, let me start with the lie, the biggest lie we tell ourselves. And if entrepreneurs, I remember with my ex, and she was complaining at me that I was always working. So I would come home, dinner was like 7 o'clock, and then often I'd work afterwards. And every time she said to me, and she had a brother-in-law, she's a twin, and her brother-in-law, who I respect so much, she used to always say to me, why can't you be more like him? Now he works at a corporate and he would go to work every day and come back. By the way, I let myself off the hook a little bit. I think that as a couple, we met when we were 19 and 17. We grew into wanting different things. She wanted a nice, secure husband who goes to work, comes home. I was never going to be that guy. But the lie was, I would always fight her and say, well, he goes to golf every Sunday and he plays golf for 5 hours and blah, blah, blah. And I don't do that. I'm working for our family. And she said, you can't throw that in my face. You love your work. And I was like, oh yeah, she's right. And the biggest lie is the lie that we tell ourselves that we're doing this for them. That is complete and utter bullshit. Your family, I grew up with parents who both worked regular jobs, who I absolutely adore. They were just visiting me now. They've been married for 55 years. They were the most amazing parents. And I promise you, they aren't billionaires. They didn't work hard. And had they have been that, the money they brought us would probably been less value than the love that they gave us. And when you lie to yourself, there is a degree, a threshold at which you need to earn in order to make sure your family is looked after. Everything else is for you. And the sooner entrepreneurs accept that the lie that they're doing this for their family is complete bullshit, the happier they can be. My ex-wife didn't want to be richer. She didn't want business class seats. What she wanted is a husband that was at home and attentive. And I could not convince myself that that was true. And now I know that. And so now I prioritize sneaking out of the office to go and pick my wife up for a lunch date. I've been married now 11 years, been together 14 years, and I adore her. I get like a small child. And we do make an effort for each other, but our relationship is effortless because my priority is my family and work is purely in service of that. And if I ever forget that again, I hope that you call me out on it. I hope that anybody who knows me calls me out on it.
Oh, that's such a beautiful message and wisdom. And yeah, I think more and more entrepreneurs need to hear that because we're always striving for more and it's such a lie, right? Whenever you get it, the happiness kind of fades away and on to the next goal. Just curious, most people who are thinking about EO, they're like, oh, I don't know if I have time. And all they heard so far was the forum and events. And yet, when I joined in, first I was worried about time, but when I came in, I all of a sudden made more time to do board roles and somehow it worked. So I guess what's your message to someone that goes, I'm not sure if I have time to be on the board or to be in EO?
Yeah. If you don't have the 4 hours, the 1 hour a week, basically, if you think about it, that it takes to be a member of EO, then you need to spend 40 hours on it, right? Like if you don't have the time for EO, that's the number one marker that you need EO. Anyone who does not have time in their day, any entrepreneur that does not have time in their day to spend 4 hours once a month at a forum and maybe a couple of other hours once or twice, a month at a learning event or becoming smarter. If you do not have the time to spend on that, you have prioritized the wrong things, or your business is not able to work without you, in which case you actually need to spend more time on this. And the most important thing for me is that course correction will come in there. If you say, I don't have the time because I'm just going to grow my business, you need EO, you need that internal board of directors of your life to try and help you understand that, well, why are you doing this and what is bigger? So there's that. The path of leadership. Path of leadership is not, the lie that EO tells you is that path of leadership is in service of the organization. The truth is, path of leadership in EO is the most selfish thing you can do for yourself. Being involved in EO leadership is like a free university entrance to being part of understanding it. I run a small business. Now I get to be part of the leadership team of a large business. I get to understand the nuances of what this happens at scale. This has given me an actual sense of understanding of what my clients are going through, my big corporate clients. But more importantly than that is internationalized me. It's made me more relevant to the world in a bigger way. It's grown my network of friends to be global. The amount that I give to EO leadership relative to what I get from it, on the ROI on that is so staggeringly in my favor. And the weird thing is, and it's such a cliche, and I apologize, except that it's true, the more you give, the more you get. Every time I show up to do a free online speaking event for EO somewhere, I get booked for a little tour in the back of it, or somebody joins my speaking program. I'm trying to outgive EO, but it won't let you. So, like, don't join the path of, it's okay to be selfish. Don't join the path of leadership because you just want to serve. Join the path of leadership because it is one of the most amazing opportunities for you to grow as a leader, to learn leadership without authority. Leadership without authority is the greatest gift because you have to learn to lead when people don't have to follow. That's so fundamentally different to what you have in your business, because you can be an idiot asshole and they have to say yes. And you will not be able to, you'll find that the more you get, the more you will want to keep giving, and this beautiful cycle will continue.
Wow, I love that. And I totally agree with you. And that's why I've been on the board pretty much ever since I've joined. And I'm glad to have found another person who's been here longer and still as passionate. So I think I can see my future self in exactly where you are. As we wrap up, I would just love to hear a little bit about your insight or perspective on what do you think the impact that you want to make on this earth? And if someone was giving that eulogy, what would you want them to say about you?
So the first thing I know is that if there was a book written about my life, I know that I don't want it to be in the business section. So I think I would like it to be in philosophy. I'd like to be able to go, business sections are about collecting lots of wisdom or lots of information. I'm now on the distillation part. So I'm hoping I get to a point where I've managed to distill my thinking down into something more meaningful. I would like to be a business philosopher of sorts. If I could get to that point, that would be amazing. The second thing is that I really, really hope that the cover photo, the most significant photo of my life, I hope that there would be the cover of the book. I hope that that photo has not been taken. And I live my life in accordance with the idea that the best is yet to come. The best is not behind me. And that's important. And the work that I would like to be doing it's this intersection of, I guess, age and relevance. A lot of people talk about the youth, but actually the youth are not the issue. The youth are the easy bit. I think we obsess so much over young people. Young people will figure it out. Young people are growing up native with the world that they are inheriting, and they have it well. That's why the billionaires and the disruptors are young. What we need, what we're not obsessed enough with, is the 40 to 50 to 65-year-olds. Like, it's amazing to me. It used to be that you could do a degree, in your 5-6 years, and that degree would last you for the rest of your career. Now, you do a degree that's obsolete almost at the time you finish it to get you your first job. And then by the time you get to 40 or 50, I don't know what it's like in Oz, but in South Africa, the average age of retrenchment is 40. People are losing their jobs in their 40s, and they're losing it because the compound interest on their salary, the compounding of their salary means that they're more expensive and their knowledge is less relevant. And I believe we have an epidemic of people trying to find second careers in their 40s and trying to figure out entrepreneurship at this stage of their life and relevance at this stage. It's why we've moved to now at Missing Link, we've moved to a 4-day work week. And the 5th day, all my staff have to start side hustles. And we're going to promote them as Friday projects. We're going to help them grow their businesses, because I don't believe that people can have one income stream. But the real work for me of the future is, how do I allow 40 to 50-year-old people, and often not entrepreneurs, often them too, but the employees of big organizations who are about to get spat out, how do we make them a threat to the future? How do we let them join the team that is still relevant, still doing stuff, and still having the best yet to come? And wow. I would guess that is where my future will go, is in trying to extend the relevance of people through their careers, but more importantly, after their careers. Because I think that people lose their careers, and then their purpose, I think personal purpose is a farce, but I think that they tie so much of their purpose into their work that when they lose their work, they lose their meaning, and they lose their utility, and then they lose their will to live. And I want to extend people's utility as long as they can.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rich. That was so powerful and so passionate. And there are so many points in there that I agree with you around the side hustle thing, which I'll pick your brain outside of this podcast, because we have come to our final time here. But thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. I love doing podcasts because I'm literally so selfish, getting all the information directly from the expert, the source. So thank you again. We'll make sure to put all your details in the description below. So please connect with Rich. So thank you again, Rich, for your time.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.